Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Today we're going to start doing the repairs and little doodad things on Dad's 1953 F100 pickup. Let's get started. First thing we're going to deal with is this rear end. You remember from the inspection video, we've got an axle seal leaking a bit, and it's oiled up the shoes and made a bit of a mess of the drum. So we've got 2 axle seals and a set of shoes coming today. We're going to get started here and pull this rear end apart. It's a Chevy 10 bolt, so it's pretty easy, you know. Pull the cover off, push the axles in, remove the C-clips, pull the axles out, and then you can get at everything. While we wait till this afternoon for our rear brake parts to come, I'm going to show you something I found on the front brakes. These old Chrysler disc brakes, once you put the pads in, you're supposed to squeeze down that tab to keep the pad from doing that in the caliper. It makes it an annoying sound when you're driving. So for some reason that wasn't done on these. If it was me that put these in, sorry Dad. Anyway, we're going to fix it now. It's pretty easy. You just grab a channel lock and give them a squeeze. Just like that, see? And it takes a lot of that away. I can probably get it a little bit better doing it this way. Yeah, there we go. And then we'll do the same on the back side of it. Now what we're going to do is just have a bit of a go at these wheel bearings. There's always going to be some play in them, but I think it was this side that I thought maybe had a little much. So isn't this a special tool? There we go. And we'll pop our cotter pin out and see if we could tighten this up like 1 notch. So that's where it was. Let's see how much we can move it here. Oh yeah. There. So you tighten them up and then just back them off a hair. There we go. That one's going to have to back off just a tiny bit more. And then we can put our cotter pin back in. And we've tightened up our wheel bearing. And because we're cheapskates here, we straighten out the old cotter pins and put them back. Because this has been in there for all these years. Lots of life left in it. Except we're going to do them this way. So I just get an old piece of exhaust pipe and we can put the bearing cap back on. And then just give it a spin. Make sure the bearing cap isn't touching the cotter pin. That's good. So I'll go do the other side too. Now what we're going to do is have a go at adjusting the bands on this thing. He was complaining about kind of a vague 2-3 shift. So we're going to just, for the sake of doing it, we're going to make sure the bands are adjusted. This one here is the kickdown band or the second band. What you do to adjust it is you loosen this jam nut, you tighten the adjusting screw down to 10 foot-pounds, and then back it out 3 full turns and lock the nut back down. So that's what we're going to do. So we got that one adjusted, and it turns out it was about 1.5 turns loose. So what happens is when it's in first gear, all that happens to put it in second gear is the kickdown band applies, or the second band applies. And then when it's time for it to go in third gear, this band releases as the third clutch applies. So if this band is loose, when it releases, it's going to release a lot faster than the valve body is programmed to deal with, and there'll be kind of a gap in between that releasing and the third clutch applying. So it'll give you kind of a mushy shift, especially under part throttle conditions. So hopefully we may have improved the 2-3 shift just by doing that. So now we're going to fix the low reverse band. And you can see that adjustment is in there, in behind the shift linkage. So that's all done. The low reverse band is exactly the same procedure as the intermediate band, except you only back it out 1 3/4 turns as opposed to 3 turns on the other one. And this one was a little bit loose too. It's just wear, right? As they age and wear, you have to tighten up the bands as you go. He also said that he couldn't really feel the detents in between reverse, neutral, and drive. This shifter has a very long stick on it. And the only thing you get the detent from is from the little, it's like a little leaf spring with a roller on it that rides on a rooster comb inside there. And with that shifter being so long, I'm pretty sure that that's the problem. And I don't really think there's a lot we can do about it. Maybe next time the transmission needs servicing, I can get another spring, like double up the spring, and that might give them a little bit more feel. But I don't think that's something we should probably be getting into right now. I haven't got any transmission fluid here, and this thing takes type F, which you got to go out and scrounge for these days. So he says he's used to it and it doesn't really bother him, but he just wanted me to have a look at it. So that's my prognosis on that. I got the cover cleaned up and put a nice bead of silicone on it. We'll let that dry while we do the other stuff, and then it'll be ready to put back on. Our parts have arrived, so we can go ahead and start working on this. First thing we're going to do is get the old axle seals popped out. You just use a seal puller and a couple of bangs. Whoops. And you either split it in half like that or it'll come out. Give me a minute. Ain't got enough hands here. There we go. Now I'll show you how to put the new one in. Before we put the seal in, we're going to pack it. And if you can see on the back side of the lip, there's a little spring. So what we do is we pack the whole back side of it with grease so that when we're tapping it in, that spring doesn't pop out of there, because it can happen. Then find something that'll fit flat on the face of it like this, and a piece of draft or a mallet or something, and we're going to knock it straight in till it's flush with the end of the housing. And then I find a socket that's a little bit smaller and drive it in a little bit further until it seats against the wheel bearing. And that's all there is to it. Now I can go ahead and change the brake shoes. Now's the time to do it while the axle's out. It's easy to do with the axles in, but it's even easier when the axles are out. So let's take advantage of that. There we go. Now we can, we'll clean up, there's some grease on the back of the axle. We'll clean up the axle, stick it back in, and that's this side done. Now I've got our brakes back together and our axle stuck in. We're going to go ahead. We can put the C-clips on the axle and push them back out. When you've got these in your hand, feel them. You'll feel a sharp side. I usually put that side against the gear and let the rounder side be against the axle. So we'll do that. And it fell out. Didn't have it all the way in. There we go. So that axle is in for keeps. Let's see if I have better luck with this one. These tiny little GM rear ends are... no wonder the stock car guys run C-clip eliminators. There we go. So they're in. Now, we can drop the cross shaft in. There we go. Sorry about that. There. And then we can just tighten up that bolt And that's done. Then I'll clean up this gasket surface here and put the cover back on. Now we're going to put the oil in the rear end. You can see there's the fill port there. The plug came right out, lucky us. We're just going to use the old suction gun here and pull the stuff out of this jug and squirt it in. And you just fill it up till it overflows, and that's your full point. Another thing I'd like to point out is anytime you've got an axle seal gone leaking, always find the vent on the rear end and make sure that's not all plugged up with crap, because a lot of times the vent will get plugged up and stop venting, and then it actually blows the axle seal. So our vent is good, so I don't think that's a problem. We'll go ahead now and fill this thing up. It's hard to see, but the level is right up to the plug, so we could put the plug back in, and that's that. She's full. I put the drums back on and got the brakes adjusted up. So now we've got the wheels all back on it. I can let it back down and torque them up and put the hubcaps on. Got the lug nuts torqued and the tire pressures double checked and adjusted. I did catch myself though. I had to remind myself because it's got Nova rear end and it only has 7/16 studs, so I don't torque them like I torque the front ones with 1/2 inch studs. So 65 on the back ones and 90 on the front ones. Good thing I figured that out before I started breaking stuff. I've already changed the two belts that were starting to crack. I checked the brake fluid level and the coolant level. All that's good. What we're going to do now is I'm going to use this this suction thing here to get as much of the power steering oil out of the pump as I can, and then we're going to top it up with the stop leak power steering fluid. And we'll use the same gizmo to fill it back up, rather than me trying to pour it and make a big mess. All right, that's filled up to the cold fill level. This is the stuff we used. The Rizlone Super Leak Fix, mechanic in a can. So I'll just put this in the back of the truck, and if he finds it still leaks and he needs to top it up, they say to just keep topping it up with this stuff and eventually the leak will stop. Time will tell. We fixed the horn. I wish I'd have known it was under the gravel pan when I had the thing jacked up in the air the other day, but that's all right. We jacked it up again. Turns out the horn was just bad. We found another one in the shed and threw it under there, and now it works like it should. Thanks, Dad. That was fun trying to find that. I guess I could have phoned you and asked you where the hell it was, but I'm too stubborn. I noticed while I was under there changing the horn, there's a lot of oil and stuff around in the radiator. And well, this thing's got an external transmission cooler on it, and I think one of the clamps needs tightening. So we're going to have a look at that and give all the clamps just a little Okay. I got the clamps tightened up on the transmission cooler. I actually had to replace them. They were more of a fuel injection style clamp, and they were bottomed out. You couldn't tighten them up anymore. So I took them off and replaced them with gear clamps. In the process, the truck ate my little 1/4 inch drive, 1/4 inch socket. So I've got my borescope here, and I've managed to find it. It's down around this bottom corner of the radiator. So we're going to go fish around down in there with our flexible magnet and see if we can get it out. Victory! We managed to get it out with the flexible magnet. If you remember from a video we did probably way back last summer or in the fall, I found this really cool old Dixco tack in a box of junk that I got at an auction or a flea market or something. And we fixed it all up, and I tried it out, and the darn thing works. So I gave it to my dad, and he got it mounted in the truck, and now we're just going to go ahead and hook it up. So I've got this little cable pulled through. There's a big grommet in the firewall. I've got this pulled through in the engine compartment. So the old Dixco tacks only have 3 wires, hot, ground, and signal. So we've got the grounded. So we just have to take these two through the engine compartment and hook it up at the coil. It's just an old piece of computer wire. This stuff is good for gauges. It's got like 22 gauge conductors in it, which is just really all you need for instruments. Here's the other end of it hooked up to the coil. Now we'll see if it works. The Dixco stuff that I read up on said you could use the hot side of the coil to pick up the power from, and it didn't seem to mention to worry about it if it had a ballast resistor. So we're going to find out anyway. We're going to crank this thing up and see what happens. Well, that's cool. It works. That's a really nice period piece. I'm not quite sure it's all that accurate. I really don't think this thing is idling at 1,000 RPM, but hey, the needle moves. What more do you want? Now we're going to see what we can find out about this sticky spot in the throttle right off idle that he was telling me about. You can definitely feel it there. So I pulled the pedal away, and you can even right on the end of the throttle arm, you can still feel the stiff sticky spot. So we're gonna have a look at it. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna unhook the throttle link from the carburetor and see if I still feel that sticky spot there at the pedal. So I unhooked the throttle linkage, and what I found was the throttle worked fine until you started the engine up. And once you started the engine up, you would get this sticky spot. And all it is the throttle shaft is starting to get a little bit worn, and the blades are contacting the board. It doesn't do it when the engine's not running. When it's got vacuum and it pulls it down when it's idling, it was sticking the throttle blade in the board. So I just opened the idle screw a tiny bit, and it seemed to make that go away without really speeding up the idle speed. What it could probably use would be to take the carburetor off and maybe close the idle screw, the idle speed screw on the secondaries a tiny bit, which would let us open up this one a tiny bit more. But anyway, it's good for now. But anyway, I seem to have it good now. So I'll hook this back up and go inside the truck and make sure it works good from the gas pedal. So in the end, I had to just kind of do a little balancing of stuff. I closed the secondaries just a tiny bit, which enabled me to open the primary just a little bit more to get past that spot where the throttle blades are binding up. And I had to take 2 degrees of initial timing out of it just to get it so it still idles nice at 700, not quite 750 RPM. It's idling with 19 inches of vacuum. That's pretty darn good. And there's no more tight spot in the throttle, completely gone. Well, that's pretty much everything on his list. I checked the transmission oil. It was down, half a quart, probably due to that leak that we found in the grill. So I topped that up. Now I'm going to take this thing out and just give it a spin up the road and see what I can find out about this mushy 2-3 shift he was talking about. I took it out for a test drive, and I'm happy to say the transmission's working pretty well now. I brought it back in, and the last thing I wanted to do was get the toe plates out and check, just see where the front end is at, and I've got a little bit of work to do here. This is a job for tomorrow now. You can see she's towed out approximately 1/8, maybe optimistically or pessimistically 3/16 of an inch. So I'm going to have to get the turning plates out, get this thing sat up on the turn plates, and get that fixed up. It should really be towed in about a 16th. So I screwed around with the tie rods a little bit, and I've got it now so it's towed in 1/16 of an inch. All right, let's take this thing for a spin. I think my phone should stay there. The old seatbelt on here. We want to be in compliance with all traffic laws while we're doing that. Okay. She's in park. Parking brake release. Reverse. Put the window up. It's kind of cool out today. I hope I got the steering wheel straight still after all that screwing around with the tie rods. It comes back on its own. That's something good. We'll just take her for a run up the street here and turn around. Second gear. Third gear. That was a bit of a funny shift into third. Well, the steering wheel's straight, that's the main thing. We'll just run up to the golf course here and do a U-E. There's a car coming the other way, I think. Oh, he's a long way away. You can't touch the gas of this thing. Second. Third, yeah. It was just that first shift when it was cold. It goes into third good now. It doesn't pull, so I'd say we're good. All the damage I did to my dad's GMC truck when I was a kid, I'm very happy to at least be able to do some good to his Ford truck now that I'm a grown-up. And there you have it. We made it home. Well, that was pretty fun. I've been waiting to show you guys this truck for a long, long time. It's literally a family member, and I'm very happy now that I have. And we got a lot of stuff fixed up on it, and it's ready to go. Dad can hit the dusty trail this summer and go all over the place like he does. Him and Mom have been kind of, you know, off the old car circuit the last couple of years because of the COVID madness and whatnot. So now we got this thing all good. I could send them out on their way and they can go to cruise night in their car shows and all the things they love to do with this old truck. Anyway, I guess I'm done. I'll see you in the next one. Who knows what we'll be doing. I mean, racing season is upon us finally we can get outside and hit flea markets, car shows, old tractor stuff. Who knows where we'll be. Anyway, I want to thank you again for tuning in. I hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, this is Kevin checking out from the Claremont Classic Garage. So long for now.